In this video, we will be reviewing every single episode of the new Nickelodeon show called The Thundermans Undercover. Before we get started, like and subscribe so we can grow on YouTube. First, we start off with the pilot episode, which aired on January 11, 2025. A plot. We have most of the Thundermans other than Billy and Nora in the same house as in the original Thundermans show. They get a mission to defeat the first villain of the show. So they move to a beach city called Secret Shores to have their new superhero lair. The lair has lots of computerized technology, a snack bar, laser guns, a virtual assistant, and dance music. A brief discussion of getting real friends is part of the story. B-plot. The Thundermans meet the villain in his lair, and then Chloe Thunderman saves them just in time. So at the end, Chloe accepts Jinx and Kombucha as her new friends. Overall, the pilot episode started with a great set. There were a few jokes sprinkled in, a simple friendship lesson, and Colosso is the funniest. Next, we talk about the second episode, called Faulty Powers. A plot. Kombucha and Jinx appear a lot more in this episode than in the pilot. Chloe's friendship with Jinx and Kombucha are more fully realized. Most of this episode focuses on an accident that Max and Phoebe did on Chloe while the purpose was trying to teach her new skills on being a superhero. So, after this accident, she gets new powers that she can't control, like invisibility, super speed, laser eyes, magnetic powers, and so on. So at first, Phoebe tries to cure Chloe behind Max's back, but it only took her invisibility power away. So her plan technically failed. Then Max tries to cure Chloe behind Phoebe's back, but his plan fails also. B-plot. Colosso turns out to have failed his doctorate degree, so he technically wasn't a doctor in the Thundermans universe. So he finally earns his last credit and now is a certified doctor in evil science. At the end, the virtual assistant Thunderford heals Chloe and is back to normal. Overall, Faulty Powers is definitely funnier than the pilot episode because of the Dr. Colosso storyline. The characters are more fully realized, and once again, Dr. Colosso is the funniest. Next, we move on to episode 3, called Bummer School. A plot. We get a new principal, and then Max takes the job as vice principal, and Phoebe takes the job as art teacher. These jobs at the school were, of course, undercover. Since this is a Nickelodeon show, the A-plot centers around revenge. They get their school jobs from Max putting out false resumes. The B-plot has Jinx and Kombucha trying to win a mascot competition as they remember last year's failure. So they learn to work with Chloe to build a mascot. Turns out the mascot's head didn't get finished on time, so Dr. Colosso makes the mascot's head because he actually wanted to help somebody win at something, but also wants something in return. There are 2 definite lessons in this episode. 1, try to get jobs honestly and get along as brother and sister. And 2, help people out in general. Overall, Bummer School is your typical Nickelodeon episode that deals with revenge, working together, and silliness. Next is the 4th episode, The Parent Zap. The main plot of this episode is that Chloe invites Jinx and Kombucha to her house to watch a movie, but it turns out it's a horror movie, and then both of their parents are suspicious of Chloe and don't want them hanging around. But when Max and Phoebe do their plans on gaining their parents' trust, they do come back and hang out with Chloe. Now that we're partway through, save the date. A plot. Jinx is shown to lose things like earbuds, wallets, money, etc. So Kombucha helps him look for his earbuds in this case. Also, sky-high dirty dishes at Max, Phoebe, and Chloe's new house is also part of the A-plot. B-plot. Chloe bets Phoebe to go out with her new date while also being on the lookout for an ice cream truck villain named Brain Freeze. So Max and Chloe spot the ice cream truck as well as Brain Freeze and then get captured. So Max leaves Phoebe a voicemail saying that they're caught by the villain, and then she finally shows up and knocks out the villain. At the very end of the episode, Phoebe plans to go on another date with the guy, and Max agrees to do the dishes. Overall, this episode was pretty good, way better than the parent zap. Now we are going to review the 6th episode called Cherry Bad Things. Turns out there isn't really an A or B plot in this episode, so Cherry from the original show shows up to hang out with Phoebe at the beach house. So Colosso wants Max all to himself now that Phoebe plans to hang out with Cherry. But of course, chaos ensues when Cherry, Phoebe, Chloe, and Kombucha go to a spa where no one seems to work. Yeah, it turns out that Cherry has firework powers, so she obviously is going to burn or damage something. That's pretty much it. Before we continue reviewing this episode, I should put out a few honorable mentions. At the end of the episode, Jinx comes into the beach house to hang out with Max, but unfortunately Colosso gets very jealous and tries to dart up Jinx, but fails. Another thing, the chemistry between Cherry and Phoebe was next to none if you compare the original show. It almost looked like they didn't even want to do the scenes for this episode, but just did them to get it over with, and unfortunately Cherry is probably even dumber. Next we go to episode 7 called Not So Fast and Furious. A-plot. Jinx wants to join a paranormal club at his school, but through the help of Chloe, she creates ghost noises to make Jinx believe that there's a ghost so he gets accepted in the club. But instead, the paranormal kids run off and make Jinx the headmaster. B-plot. Diego V, who played Billy in the original show, also shows up in this episode, as well as Lillimar from Bella and the Bulldogs, Night Squad, Side Hustle, all Nickelodeon shows, also appears in this episode. It turns out that Billy has to save Phoebe and Max from Lillimar's character Kitty Claw, which is pretty much Catwoman in the original Batman show. So Billy saves Max and Phoebe from Kitty Claw, and then that's pretty much the end of the episode. Now we move on to the 8th episode, called For Your Spies Only, A-plot. Jinx wants to be a spy and is getting closer to discover the Thundermans' air lair. B-plot. Max and Phoebe are at school at their cover jobs while Phoebe tries to show off her bad pottery skills. That's pretty much it. We now talk about episode 9 called No Friend in Sight. There isn't really an A or B plot, it's just about Max and Phoebe wanting new friends and it doesn't really work for them out in the end. So there you have it, A Friend in Sight. Meh. Next, we move on to the 10th episode called All About Steve. This episode is all about a boy named Steve who Billy, Thunderman, thinks would be a good sidekick in the T-Force, but as it turns out, Steve doesn't have superpowers other than making chocolate and marshmallow s'mores. He gets rejected by Max and Phoebe, so he tries to get rid of them, but fails. To finish this video, I won't be talking about A or B plots in the next 3 episodes because there really aren't any, but let's move on. The 11th episode, called Titan Prejudice, explores a past superhero who was perceived to be dead, but escaped and is alive and well after being in the sea for so many years. So former superhero to Secret Shores named High Tide wants to take over the Thunderman's new house and become the leader that he thought he was supposed to be for Secret Shores, but Max and Phoebe at the very end make him pay and they take over as the leaders of the city of Secret Shores. Now move on to episode 12 called Prank You Next. Since Max wants more and more money to himself from the school, he buys luxury things like golf carts. Maybe not golf carts, but more like doom buggies for himself. You see these extra things, as Max calls them in the school, like kitty clubs, he doesn't want, so he takes their money to get himself a brand new doom buggy, aka golf cart. Of course, since it's Max, he is perceived to be self-centered and greedy, but Chloe ultimately makes him pay because she's the prankster who keeps setting him up, and then she finally makes him regret his actions that he's caused. All in all, it was a very funny episode of Max finally learns his lesson about not to take money from kids in the school. The last episode of this video introduces a new villain called Stardust. He pretty much is in form of stars and appears in wherever to transform and try to make chaos, but he ultimately fails in the end. Very weird episode. There's no A or B plot, but it's the last one that Nickelodeon has aired and that I can talk to you about. So that's it. What did you think of this video? There are so many things that we can talk about the new Thundermans show that I haven't talked about yet. So, before we continue, like and subscribe so we can keep putting out these videos. And until then, see you next time.